And good evening. We welcome you to Orlando, Florida at the Continental Ballroom of the Hyatt Orlando International Airport for Tuesday night primetime action on the 2017 USA Powerlifting Raw Nationals. With my partner this evening, Heather Connor, Brian Rushing here with you. So glad that you could join us this evening as we start out this evening in this Tuesday competition. The women 47 and 52 kilo segment or session will run along with the men's 59 and 66 kilo session this evening. Heather, I'll bring you right in. Some of the things that we saw from earlier this afternoon are going to make for some very compelling storylines for what happens in the primetime session. What were some of the things that you saw this afternoon that will lead us into what should be a very exciting evening of action?
One of the most exciting things that I think I saw during the whole morning session was Charles Acapulco coming in from equipped lifting over to raw lifting. Charles competes in the 66 kilo open category, I think junior as well, where he will be facing off against Keith Mchoney. Mind you, Keith competes in prime time, so Keith knows exactly what he has to pull to beat Charles. But Charles has set the bar kind of high leading into primetime, as he has taken over every single American record as well as total by pulling a 4 times the body weight deadlift on his final pull.
We're here in the squats portion of this primetime session as we'll jump right into the action. Suzanne Hartwig-Gary.
Yes, Susie Hartwig-Gary, she's a great squatter. She actually just took the world record in squat back in IPF Worlds in Belarus this past June. She's just an amazing person to watch squat. So between her and Marisa Inda in the 52 class, you know, there's going to be some great squat action going on there with them.
Her first attempt at 142 and a half kilos. Heather, when you're starting out in this squat segment, how important is it to ensure that you get that first lift up and get 3 white lights to just get the afternoon or evening going?
You know, I always tell people all the time, you want to open up very conservative, something that you could probably rep 3 or 4 times in the gym, something easy. You know, we want to get that first lift in to secure us on into the competition. We can always make those jumps afterwards, but a nice, smooth, easy single to open up with will set that bar and get some of those nerves, you know, out of the way when it comes to our next lifts.
You know, Heather, you talk about that, and that's been a narrative that I've heard a lot of people in judging this type of competition always talk about is going conservative, if for no other reason than just to have control of the nerves. How much do nerves have a role in a national type competition here in Orlando?
You know, I just don't think it's just national competition. I think it's, you know, local, national, and world competitions. Those nerves just never seem to go away because you don't know how your body's really going to be feeling going in. You always want it to feel great. However, some things we do have to change, whether it be lowering our opener or what have you. But, you know, we always do want to do something that's going to make those nerves a little less crazy. So opening up very conservative, getting that lift in, those nerves are going to go away right away, leading on further into the competition.
So Heather, for someone that does compete nationally and internationally, if you're not feeling the butterflies prior to an event, is that a cause for concern, or do some people just have a knack for just overcoming them naturally?
Some people are just, you know, they just are very calm. They're stress-free. As we can see, Allegra Hudson approaching the bar, she's in a calm manner. I'm pretty sure that this squat's going to go rather easy for her. Her training's been going well leading up to this. So we can expect good things from her as well going into the squats. But nerves are there. If they're not, even better.
117 and a half kilos on this squat effort here from Allegra Hudson. She hit it 110 earlier. Looks like she handled that one with relative ease. We'll wait on the scoring. 3 white lights, so Allegra Hudson is on.
Beautiful squat from Allegra.
So we're here in our first portion of the session at 47 kilos, as we'll have the women take part in the 47 and the 52 kilo. this evening, and then we'll have the men on the 59 and the 66 kilo, and then we'll have Emily Ho, followed by Allison Vick, and then Tina Daneshmand.
We have some great squatters coming into these sessions, especially in these women, squatting well around 3 times the body weight, if not a little bit over 3 times the body weight. So we're going to see some very impressive squats from these females.
Is Ho on the platform for her second attempt. She connected at 112.5 the first go-round. She brings it to the top, away down the scoring. She gets 3 white lights, and now she's in at 117.5. Now, for someone who is well-versed or finds themselves in the squat with as it being one of their favorite events or the ones that they excel at, how important is it for them to build as much of a lead as possible in this first discipline, knowing that if this is their favorite event, they'll have people coming in from behind them and possibly putting up big numbers on the deadlift perchance?
You do want to go in with a good squat. You know, if that is your specialty, you do want to do something that's going to comfortably get you that lead. However, you don't want to jump the gun by picking a number that could be there on a good day or could not be there. I think Emily Ho is in a good running to take the lead going into bench. Allegra Hudson trailing her a little bit. So I'm pretty interested to see how this is going. Emily Ho's squats have been going pretty well, very smooth. It's kind of difficult to see how much she has left in the tank, so it's going to be a good battle to see who takes the lead between her and Allegra Hudson going to bench.
Allison Vick there on her second attempt, connects at 127.5 as she has family viewing this evening in the Seattle-Tacoma area out on the West Coast. Greetings to them this evening. We talk very early on about a lot of these lifters coming from very different stripes in life, very different parts of the country. You take a look at Allison Vick, not only is she an accomplished weightlifter or power lifter, but she is a 4.0 graduate of Washington State University. A lot of people doing a lot of amazing things both here on the platform and in their regular lives.
What a grinder from Tina.
Tina gets 2 out of 3 white lights there, so the lift counts. She's on at 132.5.
I'm curious to see how much left Tina has in the tank. It was a good squat, but I think she has about 5 more pounds left in her before she reaches her breaking point.
Now, with that said, she made at that time a 7.5 kilo jump from the first attempt to the second attempt. Do we think that she goes incrementally at the same level there on the third attempt, or do you think she'll pull back a little bit?
I think she'll pull back a little bit when it comes to that. I think we'll see probably like a 2.5 kilo jump with Tina.
Marisa Inda on her second attempt.
Call for depth.
And I would imagine, Heather, that when you're in the squat segment of your session, 9 times out of 10, I would suspect, I would certainly ask for your confirmation, if anything goes wrong with the squat, it's going to be a depth issue more times than not.
Right, more times out than not, it's going to be a depth issue. I'm pretty sure Marisa will be keeping that same number going into her third squat just to hopefully make depth the next time and not get further back when it comes to building that total.
Suzanne Hartwig-Gary on for her second attempt. She connected at 142.5. Now she's making an attempt of 150 kilos. Second opportunity. Now we'll step back and prepares to engage in the lift. Has the signal. We'll have to wait see what the judges think. I think she definitely was deep enough.
Definitely got it. I'm telling you, Suzanne Hartwig-Gary is a great person to watch when it comes to squatting. If you're at home, take notes. She is the woman to watch. She's been in the sport for many years, and her squat keeps getting better. So that's going to be hard to beat.
She's in at 150 through her second rotation. And now we'll flip it back over to the 47 kilo side for the third attempt. As it looks like Lisa Rothman will get her third opportunity as Rothman connected at 100 and 107.5. She's going to make an attempt here.
And Lisa is definitely playing very conservative going into this competition. She's had some minor setbacks, but her training, I think, has been going well leading up to nationals. So what she provides on this platform is going to be what's good for her that day, and that's all you can really ask for. So I'm really excited to see what she can, complete for this competition. Plus, she's a Masters lifter, so not only will she place well in the Open, but a shoo-in to win in the Masters as well.
Third attempt. Continue to work through it. She'll put it on the rack. We'll wait on what the judges say. She gets 3 white lights, so she's in. She wraps at 110 in the squat here in this prime time session. Allegra Hudson coming on. Folks, want to thank one of our sponsors this evening, A7, a proud sponsor of the USA Powerlifting Raw Nationals. Follow A7 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or log on to www.a7intl.com. That's a7intl.com. Allegra Hudson with her third opportunity, trying to connect at 122.5 here in this final rotation on the squat. Hudson.
Good save from the spotters. Now, that was Allegra, I think, going for a junior American record of 270 pounds, which wasn't too far off what her current gym max is. So, that just shows like a little 4-pound difference can really just throw you to the ground sometimes. But we can see Allegra build back from that.
Well, now we take a look at Allegra Hudson at 122.5 on her final attempt, missing on that final opportunity. Was it a circumstance there for Allegra to where she felt comfortable with the number that she was already in at and therefore decided to try a slightly ambitious effort? Or was it one of those things to where technically she just couldn't get the lift up?
I think she was comfortable going into that. Her and her coaches are very smart when it comes to number selection. So considering how her training's been going, I think 270 was a very comfortable number for her to try to hit.
You see Emily Ho not able to connect on her final rotation. And I do want to get back to something that you mentioned, Heather, just a moment ago. When we talk about the spotters. The spotters have a very unforgiving job because they have two things that they've got to keep in the front of their mind. One, the safety of the athlete each and every lift, but to make sure that they don't necessarily go in too early and give someone an opportunity to fight through a lift.
Oh, right. And, I think I've seen that once or twice where I just get gutted for these lifters because it does turn down a lift. And I know the spotter probably feels just as guilty about it as well. But all you can do after that is just overcome, and hopefully it's not your third attempt going for American record or any official or unofficial world record at that time.
Well, when you're at a contest like the USA Powerlifting Raw Nationals, it's imperative that you've got ace spotters there so they know the perfect mix of when to engage, when not to engage, to give each lifter the premium opportunity to do as much as they possibly can in their given discipline.
And it's good to build that communication with the spotters. If you set up a certain way, if you like to pick the bar up and slam it back down on the rack before you lift it, allow those spotters to know because they're gonna react the way they should be, the way they should be seen. But just be very open with the spotters, let them know so the whole competition go as well as you want it to be. We got Tina coming up.
Tina Daneshmand comes on for her third opportunity. She's trying to connect at 135 kilos after hitting on 125 and 132.5.
So she went about 2.5 kilos up like I thought she would, so about 5-6 pounds. I'm interested to see how this one will go since the last one was kind of a grinder.
And these 2.5 kilos, when you're contending with 3 disciplines and a very tight competition, could make all the difference in the world in her pursuit.
Oh, of course. And from the looks of Tina, that third squat looked a little bit better than that second squat did. I think that's a new personal best for her. But sometimes with these squatters, if we don't set up correctly, a third attempt can look way better than the second attempt ever did.
Well, and to that end, could it have been an opportunity for her to struggle in that second lift, knowing that she needed to refocus, redouble the effort, and then therefore, technically, it was much more sound, and physically she was able to handle the weight in a very smooth fashion compared to the second attempt. It's Marisa Inda at 140 kilos. She missed on her second attempt. She doesn't miss there. She
Nails
connects.
it on the third attempt. 308 pounds. Definitely not her highest squat that she's ever had, but it's definitely still a great squat nonetheless.
Well, she put together a qualifying score on the first lift, went to 140 on the second and missed. The reality is, from my perspective, and I would want you to correct me if this doesn't sound right, but if she doesn't hit that third lift, it could emotionally really be a downer going into the bench and then subsequently the deadlift.
Oh, of course. If you excel in one lift and you know maybe the next lift that you're going into might not be your best, it can dampen your mood a little bit, but that's why we have coaches and we have people around us that hopefully can boost our confidence up a little bit and get us back where we need to be.
Suzanne Hartwig-Gary connecting at 142 and 150, taking a shot in her final rotation at 152.5.
I'd like to note that Susie is also a Master 1 lifter, so she's competing alongside people in the open division, out-squatting a lot of the females, not only in the U.S. but in the world as well. 336 pounds.
Suzanne wanted to specifically say hello to her dad, Dwayne, checking out the action this evening. And something for Dad to be proud of there. 2 out of 3. She connects on her final opportunity at 152.5.
I know her husband's proud. That was a good squat. She definitely sets the bar when it comes to squats. She's always enjoyable to watch. She even got the crowd going a little bit there.
Well, absolutely. I think they saw there that a good lift there to wrap up that rotation, creating a little bit of distance in this early segment, helping to set a tone for Hartwig-Gary here in this opening discipline this evening.
We have Dalton Lacoe coming up next. Now, Dalton is a 53-kilo lifter, I think in the junior category, but is competing in the 59 class for the open, and he is also an equipped lifter coming in raw. I think he's going to be surprising a lot of people coming into this competition. I think he's been underestimated a lot coming into nationals. So this will be interesting.
Lacoe starting at 145, a personal best in the squat for Lacoe at 166.5. So obviously wanting to get a qualifying score. We'll see how ambitious he is to that personal best.
That opener just flew up. It flew up. If he knows how to pick those numbers, which I'm sure he does, I can see him breaking his personal best easily.
Well, and without question, he has the opportunity with plenty in the tank left.
Oh, of course.
After that qualifying score, he can now be as ambitious as he desires.
Oh, yes.
That'll bring up Matthew Arremony.
He's also a good lifter, coached by Sean Noriega, I believe. I think this is his first year as a 59 kilo, and in the Primetime, he was ranked number 1 going into the Primetime for the 59 kilo. So he's going to bring a lot to this class as well, especially in his deadlift.
A Team 3 American record in the deadlift here with his opening salvo in the squat in the squat session.
Beautiful.
Appears to be a technically sound lift. We'll wait on what the judges have to say. He connects there. 3 white lights he's on with his qualifying lift at 180. Interesting thing about Matthew, wanted to say hello to all of his friends checking out the action this evening in the state of Connecticut. It's now Andres Ramos will step up for his first opportunity. 200 kilos will be his opener here in the squat.
Now, I've seen a lot of teens in this 59-kilo category in the open. Mind you, you can only be in the prime time if you're listed as open, and a lot of these lifters are not only in the open, but they are in the teen category. So we are seeing not only just strong lifters, but strong young lifters at that.
197 and a half was a number that was listed as one of his personal bests, but with an opener at 200, apparently that number is going to get blown out of the water at some point this evening.
I think we're about to see it get blown out of the water now. Beautiful.
You wouldn't have chosen that number if you weren't supremely confident that you were going to knock it out of the park.
He was confident with it. It was a great lift. It's very technique. It was beautiful.
So Andres Ramos with 3 white lights is on the board with his first lift. Interestingly enough, it's his first national level meet, second United States of America powerlifting meet. So Ramos, if he was feeling the butterflies, didn't necessarily look like it in that opening lift.
Oh, it didn't show at all. We got Zaw. I think his brother is coaching him, or at least running his numbers. He's hailing from North Carolina, Greensboro, North Carolina. He's also new to the Primetime.
200 kilos.
Zaw competing in the 50 or in the 66 kilo segment. His initial lift at 200 kilos is what he is attempting. Yes, Heather, you mentioned it. He is the president of the powerlifting club at UNC Greensboro, about 2 hours down the road from my hometown. So certainly a young man that made the trip down to Orlando and wants to impress all the folks on Tobacco Road.
Easy lift for Zaw.
So he's on the board at 200, 2 out of 3 there with the white lights. That'll set the scene for Phillip Brown.
Phillip Brown, I don't think I'm too familiar with him, but I'm definitely interested to see what he's bringing to this table as a 66 kilo, opening up with 210 kilos, 483 pounds.
Phillip Brown, 210 kilos, 66 kilo lifter.
Here from the Continental Ballroom of the Hyatt Orlando International Airport, Tuesday night primetime coverage of the 2017 USA Powerlifting Raw Nationals. So glad that you could join us this evening as Brown making an initial effort at 210 kilos in the 66 kilo platform. Brown.
These are a lot of smooth looking squats.
So
Makes me feel like I need to go in the gym and work on some things, seeing how smooth their squats are.
Well, and again, I mean, a lot of these guys, I would imagine, getting that qualifying lift is of utmost importance. I don't think that they were training just so they could peak out at 210. But
Right.
one thing about it is, from their perspective, they've got to go in and make absolutely sure that their first lift is a slam dunk,
Of course.
because the more that they miss, it just becomes exponentially bigger and bigger that they hit on a lift, and the pressure just continues to
And that pressure
grow.
definitely builds. We always want to make sure that even if it's a 2.5 kilo jump, we're still building on that total.
Dallas Bay. With his first opportunity at 217.5.
Smooth, easy opener. Keith Mchoney's up next. Also a Carolina lifter, hailing from South Carolina.
Well, and Mchoney, having an opportunity to see him earlier this summer, he put a really good show on down in Atlanta, Georgia over the summertime. So I can't imagine that Keith Mchoney, and at the event, he was so good, I just started calling him Keith McMoney because he didn't miss a lift. It didn't matter how ambitious he was. He put together a phenomenal effort. And tonight, I would think that Keith Mchoney is going to be one of the real showstoppers in this Tuesday primetime event.
Oh, of course. And as you can see, he approaches the bar, going back to what we were talking about earlier with how people approach the bar with their nerves. You never see if he's nervous. He approaches it calm, and he does that throughout every lift. Keithan is an amazing lifter and a very unique lifter, as he will only warm up a few times before he's ready to get on that platform.
Mchoney with his first lift. As he gets 3 white lights, so Mchoney is on the board. And the thing about it, and talking to Keith about some of the things that he's critical on himself about, one of the things that he mentioned, ironically enough, is that he looks short on video.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, if that's the critique that you have for yourself, obviously you're taking care of business on the platform.
I feel like that's a common thing, being told, oh, you look taller in your videos, and I'm standing around 4'11", so it's crazy what people depict from videos.
Joanthan Garcia with an opening lift attempt of 240 kilos. Garcia. We'll put it on the rack and we'll wait on what the judges have to say. 2 out of 3, he connects with that lift.
We're getting a lot of red lights on that one side from the side referee. Main thing is always hitting that depth. Of course, we always want that 2-to-1 call where it's approved, or there's 3 white lights. But I always want to make sure that we're hitting that depth.
Well, and we talked about earlier, you know, if depth is the major issue with whether or not a squat is you know, white lighted or not, I guess it would also have to do with the perspective of the judge in their position. Some judges, because of their vantage point, are going to be more inclined to red lighting a lift than others might be.
Oh, of course.
So Lacoe will have his second opportunity. He connected at 145 a moment ago, making the jump to 160 here.
That looked as easy as his opener did.
So Dalton Lacoe aces that one at 160. The 2-time World Classic Junior champion, as well as the 2-time Raw Junior National champion, is on the board now after his second time around at 160. Here in the very early going, at least from the squat platform, these guys look like they are well in control and going to be ready to put themselves into a great position by the night's end.
Yes, every single one of these squats are looking rather smooth, so I'm really interested to see what they're going to go for their third. Is it going to be just as smooth, or is it going to be a grinder?
Matthew Arremony coming on for his second attempt, 167.5 kilos. I'm sorry, is it 187?
As we can see, he has a very narrow squat stance. I think that's one of the most narrow stances I've seen.
Now, Heather, to that end, with the very narrow stance, what are some of the things? What are some of the things that would lead a person to want to have that sort of a narrow stance in regards to lifting with the squat?
It's all about mobility. You know, a lot of people can't stand that narrow of a stance and try to perform a squat. You'll typically see people with a wider stance, but not too wide, kind of at that medium. But I think it deals a lot with the mobility that that person has to offer and what's more comfortable for them. Because had he gone wider, he might not have been able to hit that depth that he was necessarily looking for.
So it could conceivably something with the narrow stance. It gives him a level of comfort to where he can bottom out and then still have the strength to drive all the way back to the top.
Exactly. Because we also see with Marisa Inda in the 52 class, she also has a narrow stance, probably the most narrow in that class as well.
Now, Heather, is that something that you personally have had a time to where maybe you've tinkered or tried some things when you're not necessarily in a competition setting?
I think we always look at other lifters and see the things that they're doing and say, oh, well, you know, let me try that. But we do find out real quick what works for us and what does not work for us at all. And a narrow stance is not one of them for me.
Andres Ramos with his second opportunity. Misses at 205 kilos, so he'll stay at 200 with one attempt left to go as Zaw Thiha will be back on the platform. As they look to position the platform for Thia's second opportunity as he'll try to go from 200 to 210 in the second attempt.
I think that's a pretty reasonable jump for him with how smooth his opener went.
So Zaw here on his second opportunity in the 66 kilo category here on this Primetime Tuesday night. Getting a look at the expression on Zaw's face, the attention to detail as he tries to bring it back up. He can't connect at 210. So he stays at 200 with a third attempt forthcoming here in just a little bit.
Hopefully he can get back to that 210 kilo squat. He did look super composed coming out for it. Had he not missed it, I think depth would have been a little bit of issue, but I think he can overcome that going to his third attempt, and hopefully we see Zaw get his 210 kilo squat that he's wanting.
Before Phillip Brown comes up, we would like to thank bodybuilding.com. Bodybuilding.com is happy to be a part of the 2017 USA Powerlifting Raw Nationals as the official broadcast home for the event. Find them online at www.bodybuilding.com. That's www.bodybuilding.com. As Phillip Brown will now take the podium for his second attempt. It's 220 kilos as he's making a 10 kilo jump from initiating at 210. Heather, we'll see what the judges have to say. He gets 3 white lights. Looks like he's still got a good bit in the tank from the squat as he connects at 220.
Yeah, with Phillip, that looked just as easy as his opener. Some of these lifters, they just make every lift just look as easy as the one prior to that. It makes me wonder if they're ever going to come out and surprise us with a grinder on their third, or if they're just going to have a little bit more left in the tank.
It'll be very interesting to see what happens on the third rotation as Dallas Bay will come up. Bay making an attempt at 230 kilos for his second offering. He opened up at 217 and a half. Here in this prime time session, Dallas Bay at the 66 kilo program. 4 weight classes this evening, 2 on the women's side, 2 on the men. Here on this Tuesday night prime time, so glad that you could join us as Bay battles through. See what the judges think. 2 out of 3, he's on the board. 230 kilos for Bay. So it'll be very interesting to see what he does.
Oh, yes.
With his final
I think he has about
rotation.
2.5, 5 kilos left in him, and he might be at his stopping point.
And Keith Mchoney.
So Keith Mahoney is now going after what Charles Okapoko took earlier. So now it's a battle of the American records where Keith is trying to get that back with 250 kilos. Keith Mahoney.
So Keith Mahoney at 250.
The squat that Charles Okapoko just did a few minutes ago. This will tie the American record.
So Keith will be tying Charles's open American record that was set earlier in the afternoon session. Let's see if Keith can take it back.
He has the signal. Try to drive up.
With a lot left in that tank, I don't think Keith had any doubt that he would take that American record back.
And for those that were watching, the bar did seem to get a little bit uneven. Was that a consideration? Could that have possibly cost him with that particular effort?
You know what? I've seen Keith squat a lot, and typically that's how the bar is positioned on his back. So even though it does go a little sideways like that, he does seem to keep it composed and finish out the lift in a very strong way.
So if it starts out that way and maintains that same angle throughout, he's going to get the benefit of the doubt and will get white light.
More than likely, Keith can always finish it out.
Okay. Joanthan Garcia will now make an attempt as they chip the bar at 250 and a half.
He's telling us lightweight. I think he's very confident in this squat. The confidence from Joanthan that he was showing going to that squat has definitely got to rise out of the crowd. Open American record in the 66 kilo class, so he has just taken that away from Keith Mahoney, who just took it away from Charles Okapoko. So there's going to be a battle for the squat American record going on all in this primetime session.
A little bit of drama here in this opening portion of the primetime session. Here are the 2017 USA Powerlifting Raw Nationals as Okapoko, along with Mahoney and Garcia, all putting their name on the record books this evening, doing it in succession. It'll be very interesting to see what this third rotation will look like.
We have another American record about to happen again in the 59 kilo class.
Open American record attempt. 53 kilo weight class. This is Dalton Lacoe.
So Lacoe with an opportunity to gather the record.
And he did it with ease. 59 kilo open American record. I think, however, Matthew is going to be coming in to take that record right from Dalton. So this is literally a battle with American records all in this primetime session between every weight class.
Arremony with an attempt coming up at 192 and a half, I think is what I'm seeing for his third rotation as Lacoe hits at 170.
Now, I don't see this listed as an American record for Matt, so I'm not too sure if he's taken what Dalton just set or if it just was not confirmed as he was going out for that squat. But primetime is strictly open, so he'll be in the 59.
So Arremony not able to hit there, as he'll have a qualifying score of 187 and a half. And that'll bring up Andres Ramos for his third attempt at 205 kilos.
So Andreas is going to be trying to take the 59 kilo American record from Dalton. This is getting wild.
Ramos connected at 200 on his first attempt, missed at 205 on his second.
And as we can see, these are just two powerful weight classes in the men, battling out.
452 pounds on the bar. Zaw and Deck, Brown in the hole. Bay 4 out.
Ramos approaches the bar.
Now, he did previously miss this, so hopefully he can come back and get this 205-kilo squat.
He'll await the signal from the officials for his third attempt at 205 kilos.
Let's see what the judges say. After missing on his second, 3 white lights, so a good comeback from Andreas Ramos, where he has taken over the 59-kilo American record.
So Ramos on the board at 205 as Zaw Thiha will come in for his third attempt, 210 kilos, after missing earlier at 210. He has a qualifying score of 200, but now with his third attempt, we'll try to go back to 210.
Hopefully Zaw will be able to get this lift. I don't want to say that it was too big of a jump because I have seen people come back from missed lifts, so hopefully he can do the same.
Thiha with his third attempt. Gets the signal from the official. Can't connect.
Yeah,
So he'll be
unfortunately
at
it
200.
wasn't there though. Maybe it was just a little bit too big of a jump. But I'm sure he can make back up with a bench and deadlift coming up. So he has a pretty strong bench. Probably make up for what he just lost in the squat. But he is still a very good contender to have a good placing.
As Phillip Brown will now step up for his third attempt as he connected at 210 and 220, looking now to go to 230 with his third attempt this evening. Here in the squat segment of the Tuesday prime time here inside the Continental Ballroom of the Orlando International Airport. So glad that you could join us this evening for Brown's third attempt at 230 kilos.
Beautiful shot. That was a great third attempt, I feel like, from Phillip Brown.
It seemed like once he was able to start making his ascent back to the top, once he got a little bit of momentum going, there was no stopping him. It seems like that after he got to the last 25% of the lift, he was cruising back to the top.
Yeah, I think once he got past, that breaking point on the squat, he knew he had it, so he gave us a little scream at the end to let us know, I got this lift.
Dallas Bay on for his third attempt at 232.5. This Bay is 2 for 2 here in the squat segment. Now, Heather, one thing I'll ask you after Bay completes his lift that I've seen out of the last two guys that I'll get your thoughts on as Bay looks to make this third attempt at 232.5. Bay cannot complete that one, so he'll have a qualifying score of 230 through the squat session here. You take a look at that attempt from Dallas Bay, it seemed like that he really set the bar on his back as low as he possibly could. Now, from your perspective, what are some of the pros and cons of having it set that low on your back and not really anywhere near your neck per se?
I recently just switched to low bar going into this year, so trying to find that comfortable placement on your back is it's a very big key because you don't want to go too low because you can't get that good elbow mobility in there. to support that squat and get your back tight enough. As we'll see with Keith Mahoney, he actually sets the bar a little bit higher on his back. Let's see him break his American record and allow Charles Okapoko to know, look, I'm taking my records back. I'm not playing anymore.
255 kilos on this final opportunity.
A little unsteady of a walk out there, but he kind of got it back together. Hopefully he can do the same for the squat.
And very much like what he did on the second lift. We'll see what the judges have to say. And he hammered it.
And as we saw, that bar still, it went crooked on his back, but he was able to keep it composed just like with his walkout. It was a little wobbly, but K-Mac is one of those guys who he has a poker face. He's not going to show that he's concerned about that lift at all. He's telling Charles Okapoko to bring it on.
Well, you talk about the poker face that he had during the lift. Once he realized he had nailed it at 255, he was very emotional, giving himself a little bit of a primal scream on the way off the platform.
Well deserved. He deserved that little mini celebration.
It's Joanthan Garcia will now make an attempt at 255 and a half.
To take this record, this is getting me excited. Let's see what Joanthan Garcia has to offer, because he is definitely not out of the game. Ooh. Unfortunately, it was just a little bit too heavy, but great effort from him, great effort from the spotters catching that bar and protecting Joanthan as he missed that lift.
Now, he doesn't get credit for the lift, of course, but from the perspective, even if he had been able to take the bar back up to the top, from your perspective, did he have enough depth on that particular lift to get the two white lights?
I think it was borderline. I personally would feel like it would really depend on how the judge was feeling that day. But if it's ever at that point where it could go either way, you always want to sink it just a little bit lower.
So that wraps up the squat segment here at the 2017 USA Powerlifting Raw Nationals here in Orlando, Florida. We want to thank GNC for being a sponsor for the 2017 Raw Nationals. GNC says live well, and find out more at gnc.com. So Heather, your impressions through the squats, if this is an indicator of what's going to happen the rest of the evening, what are we going to see here in Orlando on a Tuesday night?
Well, let's go into the women first. 47 kilo class. They did great. Squats looked great for them. I think a little bit of them left a lot in the tank. Going into bench, they might do the same. I know Allegra Hudson has a very good bench. Lisa Rothman's not too far behind her on bench, so it could go down into deadlifts with Lisa Rothman and Allegra Hudson battling out for who's going to take that first place. Allegra has a little bit of leeway on that deadlift, but that's not leaving Lisa out of the running at all. For the 52 kilo women, Marisa Inda has a very good bench, but we also have Tina, who just placed second at IPF Worlds in the bench press competition. So she has progressed an extreme amount in the bench press for Tina. So I'm pretty excited to see what number she's going to hit. I think it's going to be a current best for her. As far as guys, Keith, he opens up very high, but it's also a very strong lift for him. I think with Keith Mahoney, he watched Charles Okapoko at the very end of the competition, and sometimes I feel like either that can mess with your mind a little bit or kind of set a fire underneath you, and I think that fire has been lit in Keith Mahoney to come back and take what he sees as rightfully his.
Heather, I wanted to ask you, since you compete at very high levels in the world of powerlifting, what, if you were to rank the types of events that you're doing from the squat, the bench, and the deadlift, Which one is the one discipline that you have the greatest difficulty with, and which is the one that is absolutely your pet? You feel like you really make the difference in what it is that you do. And how does it affect how you go about performing throughout the course of an entire 3-discipline session?
Well, I think if there's one that just gives me a major headache, it would be bench. You know, you do have the 3 commands, and sometimes you're in an area where it's just not quiet, and you have people cheering for you. It's hard to hear the head judge, so you really want to focus on those commands, and sometimes you might actually jump the command and end up missing the lift. So I think for a lot of lifters, bench could be a big distraction for them. And I think anybody that's listening to the live stream or watching it, I think they're all in agreement that my pet, my favorite lift of all time is, of course, the deadlift. And I don't just say this because of what my pull is for the deadlift, but I say this because that is when the true competition comes out. You know, you can have a good squat, you can have a good bench, but these people who are extremely good in these deadlifts, they know exactly what they have to pull to get slightly ahead for that win. So you always want to make sure that if you're not so good at one lift, you want to make sure you're really good at these other ones, because, you know, we have Jen Thompson, who's going to be competing later on in this week. She's an excellent bencher in the 63 kilo class, pound for pound strongest bencher in the world out of both female and males. But we also have these 3 competitors going against her who, you know, excel in all 3 lifts. So it's going to ultimately come down to who has that strongest deadlift at the end of the day, and that is who's going to end up winning this national title. And I think that's what we're going to see in this primetime session, especially in the men's category. It's going to come down to this final deadlift of who's going to have enough willpower to pull through and come out with that national title.
Now, for someone who is training and competing at the Raw Nationals, if they're like you and the bench is not their favorite event, is it one of those things to where in the training sessions you're continuing to work heavily on the bench, hoping that you can maybe minimize some of the distance between possibly you and your competition? Or is it one of those things to where strictly I'm going to put together as good a qualifying score that I can, but continue to put my focus on the other 2 disciplines?
Well, we always want to train as we would any other lift when it comes to going into any competition. I'm not going to say I don't train bench as much as I do squat or deadlift. I train it just as many times, if not more. But, you know, with the anxiety that some lifters do get over certain lifts, it is best to sometimes play conservative and do what's going to keep you as close to possible with these other lifters as you possibly can get. You might be tied going into bench, but you might be 2.5 kilos behind this lifter going to deadlift. And at that point, you're able to, if you have a stronger deadlift, you can easily pull 2.5 kilos over. So at this point, like, if it's not your strongest point and you do kind of get nervous about it, it's best to just always play it safe just to build that total, which is going to help you go into the final lift.
Here inside the Continental Ballroom of the Orlando International Airport here in Orlando, Florida, along with my broadcast partner, Heather Connor. This is Brian Rushing here with you. So glad that you could join us here as we dive into the bench press this evening, as the ladies will get things started in the 47 and 52 kilo segment, as this grouping started out our evening when you joined us in progress. They started the squats. They'll get us going here with the bench press, and then we'll flip things over to the men's 59 and 66 kilos. As the platform still being worked on, as Emily Ho will get us started here on the bench.
I always like watching bench because I always like watching to see how many of these women or men can arch their backs to reduce that range of motion, and how some are able to push a huge amount of weight without an arch at all. So it's always interesting to see their setups and how they choose to bench press.
So Emily Ho will approach the bench with an opening opportunity, what looks to be 60 kilos here in her first bench attempt.
as you can see, she was setting a relationship up with the person that will be handing off on bench, so he knows exactly how she likes the handoff. So there's no miscommunication. If it was a bad handoff, he knows exactly what he needs to do just the way that she likes it.
And certainly, I would imagine that that's something that you absolutely have to communicate with someone, because you can't always make the assumption that they're going to have spent a lot of time watching you perform.
Exactly.
So 3 white lights for Emily Ho. She's on the board at 60 kilos. As Lisa Rothman will step up, she'll be at 60 kilos for her first offering this evening on the bench press. A full day of activity here inside the Continental Ballroom of the Orlando International Airport. Got started way early this morning, and we'll be taking it deep into the night here in this primetime session.
Now Lisa just jumped the press command, so I will be surprised if she gets the lift. No lift. Now when it comes to this is exactly what I was talking about earlier. You want to make sure that you are listening to these commands. It can be loud around you. And unfortunately, she jumped the command and missed the lift.
It's got to be extremely difficult when you're in a ballroom like this, to where you do have the chatter, you do have voices, you have people, discussing all things powerlifting, while at the same time you can't physically put eyes on the judge that's giving the commands.
Right.
Otherwise, if you could, it still might cost you in concentration. You still might not be able to complete the lift.
Right, and even though she missed that on technicality with jumping the command, I think that she will get that on her next attempt.
So Allegra Hudson.
Easy opener for Allegra with 137 pounds.
Now, one question that I would ask you, Heather, is for Lisa Rothman to miss that lift. It was obvious an easy enough lift for her. She just missed the audible command. Would you continue on with your program and just make the natural progression as if you had made that lift?
No, because she did the right thing by keeping the same number, because sometimes we jump the gun again or something else could happen and we end up missing the lift. Even if it's easy, it's best to always keep the same number just in case something little happens again. It's still an easy thing that we can get on any other attempt.
It's Allison Vick at 62.5 kilos. 3 white lights. So she's on the board at 62.5 here in this 52 kilo segment. Suzanne Hartwig-Gary will make her first attempt at 67.5 kilos. Now, Heather, I'll let Hartwig-Gary finish her lift here, her first attempt at 67.5 kilos. You mentioned something about the deadlift that I want to touch back on here in just a moment. This Hartwig-Gary looks to step back onto the platform. She'll get the handoff and the signal from the judge. Hartwig-Gary.
Easy opener for Susie.
People talk, you mentioned that the competition in these 3 disciplines actually gets really going in the deadlift segment. How important then does it, when everybody else seems to be anticipating the deadlift, of making sure that you maintain concentration and don't just gloss over this bench press?
Oh, it's always important to keep composure and not get too excited. For even if you know your best lift is next, you still want to add, even if it's 2.5 kilos to your total. So, the second you miss that lift, your numbers are getting backed up a little bit, so you don't want to get too far ahead to where your deadlift won't pull it. So, Tina opening up with 170 pounds. I've been watching her training recently, and this has been a number that she's been easily able to rep, so I can imagine that this would move just as smooth. And we see she does a self handoff. Very easy.
Now, from your perspective, with her going with a self handoff, is that something that you've tried before and had success with, or is it just one of those things where you just prefer the interaction with the spotter there?
I've done both. I've kind of done the self handoff, you know, in my home gym. Sometimes I just don't trust the handoffs of other people, or if they're just not cooperating with how I need it handed off, it's better just to do the self to avoid injury maybe happening. From, you know what I mean? Like, people that hand off, they can pull you out of, you know, your arch, you can get misgrooved, anything like that. So sometimes people just train that way, and that's how they play.
Marisa Inda with an attempt, her first go-round of 85 kilos.
I think that's the same as Tina, 187 pounds.
Crowd liked it. It's a good lift. 3 white lights, so she's on the board at 85.
So we have Lisa again doing the same attempt as the first. Hopefully this time she listens to those commands. I'm sure she will. Hopefully the lift goes just as easy as it did the first time. I don't have any doubt that it won't. So always, always, always listen to those commands. And it's going to be a smooth ride after that.
Now I'm counting on the board 7 lifters in this women's grouping here. How important is it as far as the rhythm of the event going on an event like this when you've got just 7 lifters going through a particular discipline? Does it force you to follow a different rhythm or a different cadence as far as your sort of pre-lift planning? How does that work out?
I mean, it's very fast-paced. You know, it's not as normal as you would see at a local competition where there's a whole lot of other people. But, you know, it's something that you have to be ready for that next lift right away. If you're not ready, that's leading up to you missing it. As we can see, Lisa Rothman just got that bench press. Didn't jump any commands. Solid lift.
So she's on the board at 60, making amends for that first misfire there on the first attempt, as Emily Ho will make the attempt at 65. Heather, from your perspective, did you prefer a faster pace when it came to the attempts as they were rotating around, or was it one of those things to where you were perfectly content taking as much time in between as you could get?
I kind of like the faster pace. I've experienced the faster pace kind of like at Worlds and at the Arnold, and it kind of allows me to not even think about the lift. Like, I don't have those nerves, and hopefully that's what's happening with these girls. You know, it's going so fast they don't have time to worry about anything. They just have time to lift.
So Emily Ho with a 65 kilo attempt after connecting at 60. So she completes the lift, gets 3 white lights, and she's now to 65, getting
I feel like
her
Emily
2
Ho
lifts.
has another 2.5, 5 kilos left in her.
As Allison Vick will step up. As Allegra Hudson, and you talked about it, and these second attempts here, Allegra Hudson in the 47 kilo segment is actually going to be preempted by Allison Vick in the 52 kilo segment, as she's going to lift before Hudson, which kind of tells you where Hudson is in regards to her weight class, her weight division, in regards to how she feels about the bench press. Vick at 65 kilos. Put it back on the rack.
It's a
3
good
white
second
lights.
attempt for Allison Vick. Yeah, Allegra Hudson's a pretty good bencher. She did come from the equipped world, so, you know, of course it's a lot of different training, but I think this has always been a very good specialty for her. I'm sure she'll make it look just as easy as the last one.
Hudson making her second, or attempting her second offering at 67.5. Do you see that, Heather, do you see that there is a trend amongst powerlifters that they want to dabble in both the raw and the equipped so that they can show that they're just as good in one set of lifts as they are in another? Do you see folks moving from time to time, going to the other side? How does that dynamic work?
Well, what I have seen is some lifters who go from raw to equipped, they're not as good as they might be, or vice versa. You see some come from equipped that are better raw, and some that go from raw that are just way better equipped. It's not necessarily that they could be good at both. However, it depends really on their training, and if they're training both or they're just training one specifically.
Allegra Hudson connects at 67.5, so she's nailed both of her 2 attempts here in the bench press discipline, and Suzanne Hartwig-Gary will now be making an attempt at 72.5 kilos. Hartwig-Gary on the bench for her second attempt. She hit at 67.5 on her first attempt.
And a beautiful attempt it was.
So she's on at 72.5.
Tina's getting close to her personal best with this 198 pounds, 90 kilos. Again, Tina has been striving in her bench press videos that I've seen online, so I will only hope that she will hit a personal best going into this competition.
Tina Daneshmand, an accountant by day, a national level power lifter by night, on the platform for her second bench attempt. Daneshmand connecting at 85 on her first attempt. Now looking for a 90-kilo effort here.
And she made that look just as easy as she did the opener. So I think that we're going to see a big number from Tina going into her third attempt.
She had a personal best of 90, so she equaled that with 90 kilos. It'll be intriguing. And Heather, I guess the question I would ask is, anytime you go into a national level or even a world level event, is it always assumed that at some point you're going to make an effort on an attempt for a personal best at the very least?
Oh, of course. Oh, of course. Especially if our training's going well, we have in our mind that we want to hit a certain number, and we're going to do what it takes to hit that number if it's there.
So despite what's going on, there will definitely be an attempt at a personal best, even if it doesn't necessarily make the difference at a national or international level.
Because that's still their own personal best. So they can leave knowing that they have progressed in their training and that their training is working for them. So again, easy second attempt from Marisa Inda, closing in with Tina with the 90 kilos.
As they have basically been tit for tat in their first 2 attempts, both connecting at 85 on the first effort, 90 on the second. As we'll go back to Lisa Rothman, who will be making a third attempt at 62.5 kilos. She missed the first at 60, connected on the second attempt at 60. And now she'll take the incremental jump on her third attempt to 62.5.
I think Lisa will make this look rather easy. I think 62.5 kilos was a perfect attempt for her on her third attempt.
It'll be Rothman, followed by Ho, then Vick, and Hudson. Here are the first 4 lifters in this third attempting rotation.
Unfortunately, 2.5 kilos was just a little bit too heavy for Lisa today. But I have seen her as well training, and I feel like, today's it's just not there. But any other day it's going to be there for her, so she shouldn't let that worry her.
So Emily Ho connected at 60 her first attempt to 65 on the second. Now making an attempt at 67.5 on her final attempt effort.
Second attempt looked pretty easy, so expecting this to look pretty good for her.
So Emily Ho takes the handoff. We'll wait on the judges' commands.
Solid lockout from Emily.
So she gets the 3 white lights.
And she's pretty happy with that. I don't know if it's a personal best, but she is smiling like it is, so I'm just going to assume it was.
For Emily Ho now, she's in at 67.5. As Allison Vick will step up to the bench for her third attempt. And to give you some context, Heather, after Allison's lift, I'll follow up on what you mentioned with Emily Ho. Allison Vick's third attempt, 67.5. She cannot connect on that final offering.
As we can see, and I know a lot of lifters that are watching and are competing will know that even that 2.5 kilo jump can make it feel like 100 pounds just got added to that bar.
For Emily Ho, her personal best coming into this event was 62.5 off the bench. So not only did she eclipse that number on the second attempt, but she was able to then redouble the effort on the third event, taking it to 67.5. So obviously the training from the from the student at Rutgers paying off for Emily Ho.
And it's definitely showing here on the platform.
And when your desire is to become a registered dietitian, training is going to be one of those things that you are going to be keenly aware of as you progress in the sport.
Might have to give her a call after competing.
I can promise you I would not want to call her after what I had for dinner. As Allegra Hudson cannot connect at 70, so she'll be at 67.5.
That would have been a personal best for Allegra Hudson, so it was good for that she went for that. Unfortunately, there's not that little of a gap between her second attempt and her third attempt, so I think that was the choice that she had to make. But it was good effort from her nonetheless.
Suzanne Hartwig-Gary will come on for her third attempt.
Bar is loaded. Susie Hartwig-Gary, no more changes to opening attempt. White B.
Gary making an effort of 77.5, which is not, it's going to be about 5 kilos short of the personal best, which she was able to pick up 82.5 as her personal best.
I like that some lifters are able to acknowledge when a lift just isn't there that day, and they do what they can that day and accept it. Susie being a master lifter and one of the best in the game, you know, there's no doubt in my mind that her number selection is always going to be on point for how she feels that day.
So Suzanne Hartwig-Gary connects at 77.5, so she'll take that as her qualifying score out of the bench press, and will now begin to set her sights on the deadlift. Now, Heather, as we're waiting on Tina Daneshmand to come on for her lift, how important is it once you've completed your third lift, you've had no issues, you were 3 for 3 on the lifts and the bench, that you immediately turn the page and begin to set your sights on the deadlift segment?
I mean, you just got to go with the same focus that you did with squats and bench. You know, your main focus is now, I know what I've done. where do I stand against these other competitors, and what do I need to do to cut this, gap close, if not close, get a little bit of that lead on them to where I'm going to have to make them up their deadlift a little bit more and try to push them to see if they can get past their limits, because if they're not, here comes this other person about to take it from them.
Daneshmand with an attempt at 92.5. 3 white lights, so she's on the board.
And a personal best for Tina. Congrats to Tina on that lift. That was a very good bench press for her.
Previous personal best was at 90 kilos, so she got to 92.5. Marisa Inda will make an attempt of 95.5 kilos.
Not only will this be an open American record, but I think it's going to be a Masters American record as well.
So a little bit of drama, a little bit of intrigue here at the 2017 USA Powerlifting Raw Nationals here on the Tuesday night primetime edition. So glad that you could join us.
As we will see, she does her own self handoff as well.
And it looks like that they're going to put it back on the bar, or put it back on the rack.
If I'm seeing correctly, Marisa uses blocks, and I don't think her feet were necessarily all the way on the blocks, so they had to adjust them a little bit before she could actually get the lift. Had she gone with her feet off the blocks, either they would have turned it down or given her the call for the head judge not calling it prior. So we see that her feet are now on the blocks, and they are not moving. Now with Marisa, the bar kind of got off path a little bit, and I think she realized that, so she let go of the bar a little bit to signify, hey, take it, I do not have it today.
So Marisa Inda cannot connect on her final attempt at 95.5 kilos. So we wrap up the women's side, and we take you over to the men's side on the bench press here in just a moment. This segment of the 2017 USA Powerlifting Raw Nationals is brought to you by Sling Shot. Find out more at howmuchyoubench.net. That's www.howmuchyoubench.net. Here with Heather Connor, Brian Rushing here with you in Orlando this evening. So glad that you've joined us for what promises to be a super, super week of action here at the Continental Ballroom of the Orlando International Airport.
Now, I think if I heard correctly, they said that Tina and Marisa were cutting it super close when it came to first and second. I think they said it was going to come down to deadlifts. Now, Marisa has a little bit of advantage when it comes to deadlifts, having a bigger pull than Tina. But again, we don't want to underestimate Tina at all, because her deadlift is big. It's not a small one, so we could be looking for a good little battle there as well.
Another layer of intrigue to come once we get into that deadlift segment. And Heather, I guess as they're resetting everything on the platform, one thing's for sure, whether or not your focus changes or anything after the bench press going into the deadlift, by the two disciplines, once you've completed those two disciplines, you've worked up a pretty good lather, and you've built yourself a pretty good idea of how much you're going to be able to withstand in this contest and where you'll likely end up placing in the competition also.
Oh, yes. And, it's funny that we see the prime time, but there is also some really great lifters that come in during the afternoon session who we might see actually place higher than some of these prime time lifters. But I think when it comes down to the deadlift starting up, they have that fire and that drive in them, especially if they know it's going to come down to placement. They're going to do what they need to do to make sure that they are on that podium.
Heather, not quite sure if you were able to overhear what came up over the public address system. They're going to give Marisa Inda an opportunity to do a relift. So basically what they've done now is put 4 minutes on the clock. They'll allow that to run down so she can get the requisite rest. but then she'll come back with another opportunity as they're going to give her a relift. Kind of give those that are watching an idea of what exactly would cause a relift and what exactly would now go into Marisa Inda's final attempt.
Usually when it comes to a relift, something was happening on the platform that was really out of her control that would kind of make her, without a doubt, miss the lift. Now, as we saw with the blocks, they were probably moving from underneath her feet, and then we saw the spotters kind of standing on them, which probably wasn't very comfortable for her as a lifter. The clock was running out of time, so she had to perform that lift. So hopefully they are giving her that lift because of, the situation that she was in to where she couldn't get comfortable. And hopefully we will see a new American record from Marisa.
Now, from a rules standpoint, with the judges here and whatnot, the relift that's going to be attempted here has to be the same weight that she was attempting on her third offering.
Correct. It has to be the same weight. They have 4 minutes to do the lift, but that doesn't mean they have to use all the 4 minutes, as we see that she has already came out. And the blocks are not down, so she's not using those blocks. So we don't have to worry about feet moving at all. And it was fast. Marisa Inda knew that she had that lift, and she was not leaving that platform without it. She's happy. She is hugging Chad. I think there might be some tears going, and she deserves it.
So she connects at 95.5 kilos on the relift, and it seemed like that whatever difficulty she might have had with that third attempt was completely eliminated just by taking the blocks out of the equation.
Correct.
And maybe just some sheer determination stepping in there being a part of the difference also. Nevertheless, Marisa Inda connects at 95.5 kilos, so she'll carry that score with her into the deadlift segment. So now we'll begin to reset the platform in preparation for the men's side. So glad that you've tuned in this evening with us as we're here in the Tuesday Primetime segment. Brian Rushing here with you along with Heather Cotter. So glad that you could join us this evening as Andres Ramos will make an attempt at 100 kilos for his first bench attempt.
Pretty interested to see if we'll have any bench battles going on in this session as well as we did the last one.
Ramos gets the command.
Beautiful opener.
So he's on the board at 100 kilos. He nails his first offering. And that'll bring up Dalton Lacoe. Trying to pick up some of the numbers here for Dalton Lacoe. As Lacoe, we talked about it earlier. Now, he is a 3-time equipped junior world champion, a 4-time equipped junior national champion. As Dalton Lacoe will make his first attempt at 105 kilos.
And as we see, Dalton, he does bench with a flatter back and does have a extremely long arm. So that's just absolute strength coming from him when it comes to pressing that bar.
So Lacoe connects at 105, so he has a qualifying score. And that'll set the scene for Matthew Arremony at 112.5 kilos for his opening salvo here in the bench press discipline. As we have, I'm going to count 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lifters in this segment, so we'll probably see this go just as quickly as we saw the women's bench press session.
Unfortunately, Matt was turned down due to, I think, a down and up motion. as well as it kind of hitting off the clip, so it might have been seen as him trying to rack it early. I feel like the weight moved very fast, but there is a little bit of slipping in his feet, and that's a lot that you will see with the Allegra carpet. It is very slippery, so you want to make sure that you're wearing the right shoes when it comes to these things. So it's always good, I feel, in my opinion, to wear a flatter shoe rather than a heeled one when it comes to the Allegra carpet to avoid any kind of slipping.
Zaw Thiha with his first attempt at 130 kilos.
An interesting setup he has going from behind the bench.
Almost like he's sliding into a race car. Thiha with his first attempt here in the bench press segment.
Beautiful open attempt for him.
So Thiha, as we mentioned, the president of the UNCG Powerlifting Club, connects with his first attempt.
So I'm sure Zaw has a lot of people back home, if not here, watching him being the president of the powerlifting team at UNC Greensboro.
I would imagine in the Gate City there's quite a few people watching Zaw this evening on the internet. We're so glad that they do, and we're glad that even if you're not here representing the UNCG Spartans, we thank you so much for tuning in as Phillip Brown will come on. Zaw does want to say hello to his fiancée, Christy, tonight.
What a great girl. She's very nice. Hello, Christy.
It's Phillip Brown with his first attempt at 142.5 kilos.
I've seen it frequently that these lifters are pushing a little bit far back and they're hitting the hooks of the bench.
Now, Heather, to that point, I guess the question that certainly I would ask, being a bit of a novice when it comes to the powerlifting, is there a penalty or is there anything that the judges see there that they would be inclined to necessarily withdrawing a white light because of that?
Yeah, they can technically see it as it resting on the hook as if it's helping you get the lift, or they could potentially see it as you trying to re-rack early. Unfortunately, that's happened a few times in this afternoon session, so hopefully you don't see it too many times. Keith Mchoney
coming in with an attempt at 142.5 as Phillip Brown connected at that same number.
Phillip Brown, I think, kind of tweaked his back a little bit. He looked a little bent over as he was walking away, so hopefully there's no injury there.
So K-Mac gets 3 white lights on the first attempt at 142.5.
Now, I don't think K-Mac will take the American record away from Charles Okapoko. Bench is not his biggest lift, but however, like we were talking about earlier, he still does have that deadlift, which he can still add a few more pounds that can clip Charles Okapoko into that second place position.
Dallas Bay will come on for an attempt at 150 kilos, and following that will be Joanthan Garcia, who will make an initial attempt at 150 as well. It just seems like that there's a crescendo building toward that deadlift. This place could very well erupt in the latter segment of this evening's primetime session.
In my personal opinion, I think with these specific weight classes, they're going to have the biggest weight pulled in the deadlift out of all the sessions that you're going to see this week. We got some big deadlifters in these sessions, so I'm excited to see how that turns out.
Dallas Bay cannot connect on his first attempt at 150 kilos.
He's also holding his back as if he might have strained something a little bit. Hopefully no injury there as well.
Looks like that they're going to go to a jury. And Heather, for those that don't necessarily follow competitive powerlifting, when it goes 2 red lights versus 1 white light, and there's a bit of a protest, if you will, for the lifter, What is the protocol now in regards to determining whether or not someone is willing to turn a red light into a white light?
Well, if it's under technicality, like if you see a little yellow mark under it, if your coach feels like, maybe the referee might not seen it the way everybody else did, he might go and argue it or have the jury look over it just to get that second opinion on that lift. And if they agree with what the coach sees, then they will overturn it. But there's been a lot of situations to where the jury, agrees with the referees and feels like the lift should be turned down.
So Joanthan Garcia will make his first attempt at 150 kilos.
We saw that Joanthan Garcia was a excellent squatter. He's also using blocks, so hopefully he doesn't have the same issue as Marisa did with the block slipping. It didn't look like anything was messed up in that lift at all, though. He made it look super easy.
So Garcia qualifies at 150 kilos on his first offering. And now Andres Ramos will make his second attempt at 105 kilos.
I gotta say, this is the fastest I've ever seen bench press in a competition go. It's usually a lot slower, and I think a lot of viewers could probably agree with that. Usually I'm drained at this point, but this is going by pretty fast.
Well, I mean, certainly it would speak to the level of competition that we've got here, as each and every one of these competitors very accomplished in what it is that they're doing, or else they wouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. But I mean, with people watching and the internet, the internet folks watching it online this evening, there's a little bit of buzz in the room and probably a little bit of anticipation for what goes on, and that in and of itself probably speeds the evening along a little bit.
Oh, yes.
Second offering for Ramos.
Good lift.
Put it on the rack, gets 3 white lights, and he's on at 105.
That was a very smooth second attempt for him. I think that was a very good attempt selection for Andreas.
248 pounds, followed by Lacoe and Thiha.
My phone is at the moment blowing up with people talking about the live stream. They're liking it so far, so I guess we'll keep it going.
Heather, you would have your finger on the pulse of the powerlifting community. So, I mean, without divulging too much, what are some of the things that you're hearing about tonight's broadcast? Because I can tell you one person that's put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it is the Dr. Trey Cunningham doing tonight's broadcast, and it is a very solid production this evening.
Yes. And, as going along with this broadcasting, like people back home, they're expecting to see things, and he is making sure that this broadcast is up and running so these viewers can watch the competition. I mean, they're just as excited as we are to see these battles go down, and as they can't be here, they want this competition to go as they see it in their mind. They want these battles, they want the upsets, they want the underdogs to come out of nowhere. And we might see that tonight. They want to see some big pulls because at the same time, this is what we're going to see going on to the national team leading into Worlds in Canada this coming year.
Arremony does connect at 112.5 kilos on his second attempt. That'll set the scene for Dalton Lacoe, who hit on 105 his first attempt. Now will be making an attempt of 115. Plus, I mean, Heather, let's be honest, a lot of people are really dialed into the fact that they're getting to understand the mind of Heather Connor throughout the course of the broadcast. They're picking up some pointers on their own.
I think a lot of these viewers would love to pick my mind a lot, but, it's good knowing that we just don't have lifters from the U.S. Watching us. We have lifters from all over the world. We have JP out of Australia. He's watching right now. He's pretty excited about what's going on, ready to see some numbers being crushed. I'm having messages from lifters in the U.S. that were unable to make it, but it just shows how many people are tuned in to the USAPL live stream and what's been going on to keep this broadcast alive. So there's a lot that goes on behind it to keep these viewers happy.
Lacoe was able to hit at 115. Arremony connected at the 112.5. And now Zaw Thiha climbs into the cockpit and now prepares for his second attempt. This one at 135. Gets the command, and will he get it? I don't know. Not going to
Those
be
are
able to
my
complete.
favorite kinds of lifts. When you see that struggle and then it comes out of nowhere that they can get it. I don't know how they do it. Unfortunately, it wasn't there today. Hopefully he can come back in his third attempt and come back from that lift. We're seeing a lot of max effort lifts on these going into some second attempts, so it makes me wonder, you know, if maybe their water cut or their weight cut didn't go as planned, if they lost some strength going into their lifting.
Phillip Brown will make an attempt at 147.5 after connecting on his first attempt at 142.5. And we talked, you mentioned how maybe he might have pulled something or tweaked something. We'll certainly get a better idea of whether that's the case or not with what happens on this particular lift.
And I hope it's nothing like that, but like you said, we will see in this lift that pain is still there. Hopefully he knocks us out the park.
An attempt at 147.5.
I think there's well, he got up like there wasn't any pain, so maybe it was just that one lift that kind of gave him a little discomfort. But he's got back into the game. He's feeling a lot better. The last thing we want to do is hurt our back doing the arch is leading into deadlifts where that uses a lot of our back. So
Dallas Pate will come on for a second attempt at 150. Missed on his first attempt at 150. He's apparently, from the lift going to jury, didn't get the result that he had hoped. So he'll now make the second attempt at 150.
now the head judge has told him to re-rack under certain situations. It could be where his hands were placed, as I saw that happen this afternoon. But you can always re-rack and get back unless the head judge has already gave you the start command. If he hasn't, you can always re-rack and position yourself again.
So Bay not able to connect at 150 for a second attempt.
I think Dallas Bay might have allowed that first attempt to get to his head. Hopefully he can pull through the third attempt. He seems to be having some struggle with the bench press. Hopefully everything goes smooth for the third.
It's going to be imperative for Bay that he at least gets a qualifying score on this third attempt, as this could completely derail his entire evening if he can't put a qualifying score on the board.
Exactly. That will give him, as you said, like it won't result in a total, so he will be disqualified from the competition. So hopefully his third comes around and he can get back in the game with that. Keith Mchoney
going from 142.5 to 155. And it looks like that he's probably got a little more in the tank too. So he gets a perfect 3 white light score there.
I think, as we talked about before, with kind of playing it conservative and bench, if you know it's not your strongest lift, Keith knows what he has to offer when it comes to the deadlift. So he's just going to do what he can in this bench press. So he keeps adding those numbers to his total. I think he's coming into deadlift with a number set in his head that he's going to pull so he can retain that national title. But Charles isn't going to give it up easily, as he did pull 4 times the body weight to pull for an American record and American record total in the 66 kilo open class. So this will be interesting going into deadlift.
Joanthan Garcia with his second attempt, as he connected at 150, will now try to go 157.5. The handoff has been administered. They'll wait on the signal. And now Garcia will make his way toward the top.
Wow. Very fast second attempt. Joanthan Garcia made that look like a potential opener. So I'm curious to see what his third attempt is going to be like. Is it going to be just as easy, or is he going to up that weight a little bit more?
Well, he's gotten the first two knocked out, going from 150 to 157.5. It does intrigue me as to how ambitious he might be on this third offering. Heather, we want to thank the Complete Diet Solution. MyMacros Plus is happy to be at the 2017 USA Powerlifting Raw Nationals. For more information on the MyMacros Plus program, log on to getmymacros.com. That's getmymacros.com. As Andres Ramos will come on for his third attempt. He hit at 100 and 105, now looking to go at 107.5. Ramos on the bench will receive the handoff.
I think that was a good third attempt for Andres Ramos. I don't think he had another 2.5 kilos. Very good attempt selected from his coach. I think that was a solid third attempt.
So he's on the board now with 3 good lifts on the bench press segment. 107.5 is where he'll stand, and that brings up Dalton Lacoe.
Dalton was actually coaching his brother earlier this afternoon, so I'm pretty sure his brother is in the stands watching him perform as well. So they have a good family powerlifting going on there. Both very strong kids.
Well, and a lot of folks watching Dalton on the internet. We'll let him complete the lift here. As Lacoe will put it back on the rack. 3 white lights, and he's on at 117.5. As his parents, Michelle and Dean Lacoe, his grandparents, Pete and Sandy Lacoe, and Carol Manziano, checking out the action this evening. So glad that you've tuned in, and certainly Dalton putting together a very solid performance this evening.
Well, him and his brother are definitely making their family proud, whether they're watching on the live stream or here at this competition today. They're both doing great.
Well, when you're able to do what Dalton's done by putting together a really good junior resume, it really sends a signal to everyone else that as he continues to progress, that he is going to be a name to be reckoned with for years at all the varying levels that he continues to progress into.
Of course.
Matthew Arremony seemed to move that one quickly at 120. He gets the 3 white lights.
And Matthew is extremely happy with that bench press. I think it might have been a personal best for him. I love the excitement. I love it.
It's Arremony on the board at 120 kilos. And that was, in fact, a personal best for him as he came in at 117.5.
Okay, so that was a pretty decent personal best for him.
And the contingent out of the state of Connecticut roaring just as Matthew did with excitement over that lift. So he's on the board at 120, a new personal best for him. And obviously, with him being a teen 3-level American record holder in the deadlift, you would think that the best is yet to come.
Oh, I think he's trying to go after the open. I think he's trying to go after that open record, but we'll see. He's got
Thiha.
a lot to offer in this sport.
Thiha not able to connect at 135 kilos. So he'll have a qualifying score of 130. And that'll bring up Dallas Bay, who, out of anybody this evening that's experienced any pressure, he's going to be really the first. Everyone has been very good at delivering the reps that they've needed on their attempts. This is a guy that if he doesn't hit this lift as it stands for the competition as a whole, his night's over.
His night is over. We can only hope that he's able to get this. He gets that confidence that he had at the beginning of this competition.
So Dallas Bay way down the signal. He brings it to the top.
And I think Dallas Bay has just made his comeback with 3 white lights. He has the crowd behind him. Good for Dallas Bay. That's exactly what he wanted, as well as the crowd.
So he keeps himself in the contest at 150, has a qualifying score, and that'll set the scene for Phillip Brown, who'll be making an attempt at 152.5, as he's gone in 5 kilo increments here in this bench press segment, going from 142.5 to 147.5, and now going to 152.5.
I think Dallas Bay might have been playing with us a little bit. He might have seen the crowd dying down a little bit, so he decided, I'm just going to get this third attempt, get them alive again, and it sure did get him alive for Phillip Brown coming out here to do his bench press of, what is that, 336 pounds? 152.5 kilos. I'm sure somebody watching the live stream will correct me. They like doing that, so anybody out there? They'll be sure to correct me on what the pounds are.
Brown looking to bring it back to the rack.
Beautiful third attempt from him.
And
he's pretty excited about it. It probably was a personal best for him, too.
So he gets in at 152.5. And that'll bring up K-Mac, who will come in at 157.5 for his third effort.
So a 2.5 kilo jump from his previous second attempt, which I think was a good call. I think this would be a great third attempt for him. Again, he's probably playing it conservative because he does know that his specialty is coming up in the deadlift portion of the competition.
And the one thing that I am impressed with Keith Mchoney is the fact that the young man comes out and you can never tell what he's done the entirety of the day because it's the same stoic expression that he's got on his face before every lift.
Agreed, and just like with his squats, like you'll see the bar go a little bit crooked, but he's able to finish out just as strong. Keith has probably the best poker face in USAPL. But here and again, he will show his excitement, which is well-deserved.
So he's on the board at 157.5. As Joanthan Garcia will now make an attempt, the last one of the bench press discipline at 163 kilos. It's here this evening. We're one lift away from going into the deadlift segment. And if there was a little bit of emotion when Dallas Bay made that final attempt at the bench press, that's going to be personified and multiplied over and over again as we get into the deadlift.
Yes, it's going to take a lot of me to not be screaming on the live stream, and I've already promised I wouldn't scream and holler, and I would behave on this live stream, and I know that breaks some hearts, but there is going to be excitement, and I hope everybody back home feels the same way we do here about it.
Heather, I'll make a promise. I'll do my best to try to control the beast as much as I possibly can. Here inside the Continental Ballroom with Heather Connor. This is Brian Rushing. So glad that you've joined us this evening. Whether you're here with us taking in a late dinner, a very late dinner, or you're halfway around the world taking part in a very late breakfast like in Australia. We thank you so much for tuning in, as that lift for Garcia does not connect, so he'll take 157.5 kilos.
You know, our friends in Australia, they have their nationals actually coming up very soon, I think, coming this weekend. So there will be a lot of people here live streaming on that to check out our friends over there who just like us, we want them to do the best just like they want for us. So, best of luck to all the Australian lifters that are also competing this weekend. We'll be tuning into that as well. But some great lifts here.
And Heather, as you've made the rounds throughout the years, lifting at very high levels, you get to immerse yourself around a lot of different people, a lot of different faces from a multitude of countries. What do you see overall on the powerlifting scene as far as the numbers of people that are joining in and the quality of the events as they progress and get better and better and better at the national and international level? What does it say about the health of powerlifting worldwide?
As a whole, I feel like there is a lot more to come, especially in the IPF. We are witnessing some people coming out of nowhere who are extremely strong, and you sit back and you're like, now where did this person come from? I have never seen or heard about this person. Here they are breaking these world records, breaking these American records, or whatever records in whatever country you're in. But it keeps the sport alive. It interests you. It wants you to learn more about, what's to come from this lifter. We had Daniela Mello, who's going to be competing later on this week, who is not only a teen lifter, but went to IPF Worlds as a junior, won junior IPF Worlds, but also broke the open world record in the squat, which was a huge deal, which we can be seeing a lot more from her. So being so young, we have seen a lot from her in such a short amount of time. She's been in powerlifting for a year, and that same thing we see in these other countries with these lifters just putting up outrageous numbers. And you got to think, what's in this water? What is in the water? What are these kids drinking, and where can I get some of it? Surely we do meet all these people, and we're able to learn a whole lot of different training methods. And vice versa, they can learn from us. But it's an ongoing thing that always interests me to see the new and upcoming lifters that are going into nationals and IPF world competitions.
Well, and I think one of the things that's really sort of, for lack of a better term, really sort of closing the gap as far as distance is the fact that you've got the internet that has created a virtual platform for just about anything in the world, but specifically to powerlifting, to where now there is constant contact from all points of the world that can basically get together and talk about new techniques, new products, new ways of training, and it's all there basically for open consumption, to where the best of the best can actually get together with other parts of the world and really sort of hash out what really works, more importantly maybe what doesn't work at all.
Right.
And it creates the interest and the intrigue level because of where we are on our social mediums nowadays. And so because of where we are in the 21st century, it seems like that the would-be powerlifters, the kids that are just getting started, they've got new heroes that in a way 30 years ago they would have never been able to access those types of heroes.
Of course.
They have them now.
And, I am thankful for the people that are very heavily involved in social media, especially on YouTube, when it comes to, again, JP from Australia. He does do a lot of informational videos that a lot of lifters will go and will watch, just like Johnny Cantino. He goes and does a lot of things that, powerlifters really didn't have access to, but here comes these people, Mech Squats, JP, they're making these videos that are educating these other lifters, especially the novice ones, on things from nutrition, training, all the way down to what attempt selection should be. And now we have podcasts where Matt and Suzanne Hartwig-Gary, they do podcasts, but just so many ways to build your knowledge on this sport. Some that will help you and some that will maybe not so well work for you, but there's always that outlet that they can go to.
Well, and for any sort of a burgeoning sport like powerlifting, eventually people get to say, well, hey, wait a minute. If if you expose all of the secrets of the industry, then all of the secrets will be out. There'll be nothing that you can keep for yourself. But when you're dealing with a sport like powerlifting, you want the secret out. You want people to engage as much as they possibly can for the lifeblood of the sport, so you'll have generation upon generation of future powerlifters that will make the next 30 years of the sport just as good as what we're seeing from this current 30-year segment that we've seen.
And for any novice lifter, and even like a lifter that's been in the sport for many years, you always have to be willing to learn new things. New things are what are going to help you progress in the sport. You have to be willing to be open to hearing the critiques from other people, even if it's not something that you necessarily want to hear. It's something that you need to hear that's going to help you be the athlete that you can be as far as when it comes to powerlifting.
Here inside the Continental Ballroom of the Orlando International Airport in Orlando, Florida, it's Tuesday night prime time. Here with Heather Connor, Brian Rushing here, as we'll begin the deadlift segment on the central platform here in the Continental Ballroom, as Emily Ho will get things started with the deadlift session. 112.5 kilos for her opening salvo in the deadlift. And Heather, I made the promise that I was going to do my best to control the beast, but
you're going to have a lot of people mad at you.
But I'm going to let you enjoy the excitement and the anticipation of this deadlift portion of the contest.
Oh, deadlifts are my favorite, so a lot of people aren't going to want you to try to control that at all.
So
deadlifts need to go by super fast, so I hope these athletes are prepared, especially with not so many competitors. I hope they're used to the speed and what's to come, so they can be prepared for their next deadlift.
Well, and this is what, let's be honest, this is what makes it so viewer friendly, is it's fast paced and it's raw power.
Right.
You either lift it or you don't, and this is what really separates the chaff from the gold, if you will.
Correct.
It's Lisa Rothman for her first attempt.
Solid opener for Lisa Rothman.
As Rothman, I noticed there, started with a narrower stance, as it seems like from the little bit that I've been able to follow powerlifting in this last year from a broadcast side, is I've seen more and more lifters from the deadlift go with the wider stance. The pros and cons to that, Heather, are what?
For me, I pull sumo. It does reduce that range of motion when it comes to the deadlift, but in general, it's what you are strongest at. It's going to target certain muscle areas, whether you're pulling conventional or sumo. And some people that pull conventional, they just do not have that hip strength or the glute strength to be able to pull sumo. So it's all about body preference and body style and what works for you best.
And Hudson with her first attempt.
And I think with Allegra, not only did she just break the junior American record, but she also broke the junior American record total in the 47 kilo class.
So she's on the board at 137.5 with her opening attempt. And that'll bring up Allison Vick.
And I think with Allison Vick, she is in the running with another lifter that competed in the afternoon for first place in the 52 kilo junior class, and is in the running to try to get that American record in the deadlift as well for the 52 kilo juniors. So we'll see how that turns out.
Vick gets 3 white lights at 137.5, and that'll bring up Suzanne Hartwig-Gary.
I love Susie's little walk up to the bar. It's my favorite out of all the competitors. So like a little dance and a hop.
And you see there in that close-up.
We got our hop, and then here comes our little dance. I love it. One of my favorite setups.
And I'm sure there's a method to the madness, if you will. It's more than just show, I would imagine.
Oh, of course.
There's a real program there
Yeah.
to prepping for the lift.
Right, it's something that they just adapted to, and that's what works for them. It gets them in their zone. And at that point, some people might find it silly, but that's what's comfortable for them, and if that's what helps them get their lift, by all means, keep doing it.
142.5 is where Hartwig-Gary connects on her first lift. Tina Daneshmand will make an attempt at 162.5.
Tina's a very impressive deadlifter to me. She chooses to deadlift without a belt, and being somebody that suffers from scoliosis, you would think that that's what you would want to protect is your back with that belt, but she has a very strong pull beltless. That's her preference, and she does it very well.
She's on the board at 162.5. Marisa Inda will be making an attempt at 162.5 as well. And Inda connects 3 white lights there at 162.5. So she qualifies with her first lift. And Heather, you're right. The pacing of this
It's fast.
has accelerated considerably.
It's fast, so you have to be ready. If you turn your head, that clock's going to start running. You need to run out on that platform. So it's always good to stay alert when deadlifts come around if you're in a short flight.
Heather, one of the things is you've been giving us great analysis throughout the course of the evening, as I've had an opportunity to do a little bit of people watching throughout the night, and especially in this deadlift segment, the attentiveness of the crowd has ratcheted up a step or two, and there's a lot of anticipation if there is a home run derby event, if you will, when it comes to these 3 disciplines. It seems like that the deadlift really is the one that best exemplifies a home run derby-esque type of feel.
Yes, I think bench press, to be honest, kind of tires out people, especially in the crowd. It is longer than the other 2 lifts. However, when they know that a good battle is about to come, as we see with Emily Ho pulling that deadlift, they're going to get excited, and they are going to want to see what these athletes have to offer, especially when it comes down to these final pulls.
So Emily Ho connects on her second attempt at 120 kilos. And that'll set up Lisa Rothman, who will be making an attempt. She connected at 120 already, is now going to go to 127.5. Lisa Rothman, a black belt in Muay Thai, a Florida State record holder, and something that is near and dear to my heart is she can actually sing, as she has presented the national anthem at events like Miami Heat games. So much kudos to her.
I give it to her. I wouldn't have the confidence, or I doubt the vocals to be able to sing in front of a crowd like that.
So Rothman connects on her second attempt at 127.5. And Heather, that's what gives us the great disparity of talents here, is I get to sing the national anthem at numerous locations, but no way in a million years could I ever perform at a national level in powerlifting. That's just not in my DNA.
No. It's a sure way for my voice to crack and embarrass myself even more on national TV, so I'll let Lisa stick with the singing of the national anthem.
That's exactly how I would describe my powerlifting. My voice would crack and I would embarrass myself in front of the entire nation.
Allegra Hudson going to break her previous junior American record in the deadlift and in total.
147.5 the second attempt. Heather, it certainly looks like she's got more in the tank.
Oh yes. I think Allegra's going to be going for a personal best in this, which actually might be close to her personal best in equipped lifting as well.
So she's on the board at 147.5 with her second attempt. Allison Vick will be making a jump from 137.5 to 150.
30 pounds for all of our friends that aren't too kilo friendly. That was a strong pull for Allison. Now she did allow that bar to drop from her hand. She did not follow the bar all the way down, so they did get called for that. That might have affected Allison a little bit because I don't think she has much left in her. So either she's going to stick with that same number and grind it out and hopefully place it back down, but we'll have to see what comes from Allison Vick with that deadlift.
Let's take a look at the screen here. Suzanne Hartwig-Gary.
I love it. Every time. She's not changing it at all. So if anybody's looking for that to change, they can keep waiting.
The next deadlift internet sensation. Suzanne Hartwig-Gary.
And she does it with a smile on her face.
And when you're deadlifting 152.5 kilos, you have every right to smile as she hammers that second attempt out. So that'll set up the scene for Tina Daneshmand. Making an attempt at 172.5.
I'm not too sure what Tina's current max on deadlift is, but I think she is cutting it pretty close, if I am not mistaken.
3.4 times her body weight.
Daneshmand with her second attempt.
And I think that was a strong pull for Tina. I think we can see a good third attempt coming from her.
And she's on the board at 172.5 as she's gone 2 for 2 here in the deadlift segment. And now Marisa Inda will wrap up the second attempted rotation. After connecting at 162.5, she'll go to 175. This the finale of the second attempts.
This should be an easier pull for Marisa. Easy pull. Her hand placement might have been off a little bit, but nonetheless easy for her.
So she connects at 175, and we'll go into our third attempt rotation here. The final lift for these ladies on this Tuesday night primetime session.
And the boys come out to play, huh?
Well, and then we see the boys come out to play. Speaking of which, Scientific Sports Products is a proud sponsor of the 2017 USA Powerlifting Raw Nationals. SSP, the brand for drug-free athletes. Find out more at sspnutrition.com. That's sspnutrition.com.
Next lifter is Emily Ho from Rutgers University, New Brunswick, New Jersey. She lifted at the University Worlds in Belarus this past year.
Emily Ho getting the introduction
Belarus was the year
before
before.
going onto the platform for her third attempt. Representing the Scarlet Knights of Rutgers University.
She made that 2.5 kilo jump. It's hopefully she gets it up, but seeing how her second attempt was a bit of a grinder, I'm curious to see how this one will go. And
Bringing the crowd to its feet.
She's gonna lock it out. Oh, what a great fight from Emily. The thing with sumo, which she does to a T, is she is patient with that bar coming off of the ground. That's one thing a lot of people they are impatient and they'll let it drop out of their hands before it even gets a chance to break the ground. So kudos to her for keeping up with that.
Not quite able to connect on that final lift opportunity, so she'll take a score with her of 120. out of the deadlift segment, and that'll bring up Lisa Rothman, who will be making an attempt at 132.5.
With minor setbacks and some lifts off of technicalities, I think Lisa has performed well tonight with her attempt selection. Unfortunately, her third attempt just wasn't there today.
And now on that miss, that will bring up Allegra Hudson, who went from 137 to 137.5 to 147.5, now making a final attempt of 152.5.
Either she will tie her personal best or beat her personal best. I always said if there was going to be 147 kilo that was going to win tonight, since I wasn't competing, I was going to hope it was going to be Allegra. Well deserving of the gold medal. I look forward to seeing what she can do in Canada this year in IPF Worlds.
So for Allegra Hudson, she'll go to 147.5, and that'll bring up Suzanne Hartwig-Gary for her final attempt at what looks to be, am I looking at that right, 162.5 kilos.
162.5.
She's connected at 142.5 and 152.5. Now trying to go for 162.5.
So she's looking to break another American record for the Masters in 1B category.
Over 3 times her body weight, a Masters 1B record attempt.
I think she's going to get this easily.
358.2, Suzanne Hartwig-Gary.
She patiently waits for a quick lockout from Suzanne Hartwig-Gary. Beautiful performance from Susie.
And she's pumped, and deservedly so.
All right, here comes Allison Vick.
She connects at 162.5, a perfect lift there. She'll close out her evening with a very solid number in the deadlift. And that'll bring up Allison Vick, who missed on her second attempt at 150. She's going to take the shot at 162.5 anyway.
So she has upped it. Hopefully she can get this lift and control the bar all the way down. And that is a fight from Allison Vick. She controlled it all the way down, and they say, good lift.
And Allison Vick excited, and for good reason.
I think that put her in the first place position for the 52 kilo junior class.
As she is in at 162.5.
391.3 pounds.
It's Tina Daneshmand.
So we have Tina coming up with 391 pounds. I think this is a personal best for her as well. So excited to see her complete this lift. I have all the confidence she will. And she's telling the head judge, no, I can't drop this deadlift. She wasn't ready.
And she does so. Her previous best was at 175, so she goes to 177.5. She'll get her qualifying lift at 177.5. And Marisa Inda decides that she's done for the evening, she will not make her third attempt, as she will take a 175 with her into the final leg of her 3 disciplines this evening.
I think what Marisa was doing was allowing the guys to have that time to, you know, get their thoughts together, get ready for the lift while not rushing them to run onto the platform. Not only is she giving this time for the athletes, but also to the spotters and loaders as well. So I condone her for doing that.
Well, it's a very sporting thing to do.
Yes, yes. She's allowing that clock to run out, allowing that little break, which is much appreciated. And now it's time for the boys to come out and play. We're going to see some interesting lifts going on. So.
And now it comes down to 8 men in the deadlift as part of tonight's 59 kilo and 66 kilo weight classifications. So we want to thank each and every one of you for being here with us this evening from the Continental Ballroom at the Orlando International Airport for Tuesday night Primetime. Here with Heather Connor, Brian Rushing here with you. So glad that you could join us. So we want to thank Titan Support Systems for being a proud sponsor of the 2017 USA Powerlifting Raw Nationals. 4 decades of champion powerlifters, always the originator, never the imitator. Learn more at titansports.com.
We have Andreas Ramos starting us off with 440 pounds, 200 kilos to start this deadlift battle off right.
Ramos,
and that was fast.
At his first attempt at 200 kilos, he nails it. He's on the board with a qualifying.
Kind of looked like a warm-up. I think Andreas came out here still thinking he was in the warm-up room. That opener flew up.
The young man representing the University of Texas A&M Corpus Christi, the Islanders. That'll bring up Phillip Brown. Phillip Brown with his first attempt at 217.5 kilos. Brown, first lift attempt.
Easy attempt.
He's
for
on the
Phillip
board
Brown.
at 217.5.
Dalton Lacoe. Dalton weighs 52.9 kilos, and he's pulling 225 kilos. That's
496 pounds for Dalton Lacoe, 225 kilos here.
That's a strong opener.
His personal best at 240.5.
Okay.
So he's on pace.
Yeah, he's opening up pretty well to beat that. And that was fast, so I can just assume that he's going to beat that easily.
So Lacoe gets 3 white lights, and that'll bring up Zaw Thiha.
for Zaw. 496. Joanthan on deck, Matthew in the hole. Give me a round of applause for Zaw, 496.
Thiha waiting on the signal from the judge. before he engages in his first deadlift effort. Zaw Thiha will get 3 white lights as he connects at 225.
Pretty easy pull for Zaw. He's going with the hook grip. So even more impressive in my eyes for him to do that. I think Matthew also pulls with a hook grip. So I think he pulled around 600 pounds in training. So I'm pretty curious to see what he'll pull around for his third attempt.
Garcia making an attempt at 227.5.
Also hook grip. Oh no, he's double under.
Nice lockout, Joanthan. Lift is good.
Gives a little wave to the crowd.
Rocking the Chuck Taylors all the while. It really is very intriguing about, I mean, there really is no one way to perform a lift.
Right.
You see all sorts of variations, all sorts of nuances that probably speak as much to the personality of the lifter as it does anything technically going on.
Right.
Deadlift and total American record attempt.
Matthew Arremony making an attempt of 230
So
kilos.
with this, he's looking to take the total in American record totaled and deadlift. And he walks off with the sass, showing the crowd that he is not finished.
Arremony will connect at 230, which will bring up Dallas Bay. And Heather, I'll be very interested to see what Dallas Bay does here in regards to responding after had some difficulties on the bench press.
Yes.
Was finally able to put together a qualifying score.
Right.
Be very curious to see what he does here in this deadlift segment.
You know, after his situation with bench, it's pretty interesting to see what he's going to do in deadlift to see if he can make up for what he lacked in bench.
Dallas Bay getting a lot of attention from the folks inside the Continental Ballroom. A lot of phones going up recording this.
Oh. Unfortunately, that's going to be a no lift due to up and down motion.
All right, we got the blue card and the yellow. Blue card was a little up and down the bar. Give him a round of applause.
Hopefully Dallas can come back from that just like he did in bench. You know, we never know like what can happen with these lifters, especially sumo. Setting up wrong, it can easily make that lift turn easy to hard real quick.
K-Mac will open up at 257.5.
Mchoney, 567.
The subtotal right now sitting at 412.5. We'll bring it down slowly. We'll see what the judges say. Three white lights. He has a qualifying score at 257.5.
Again, walking out with that poker face and leaving with that poker face. So Keith has a very big pool, so I'm interested to see what's about to happen as far as this next two attempts from him.
Now what I am curious about is if his final attempt, whatever happens, he lands the attempt, will he finally break out with something outside of the poker face?
I believe so. I think he will show that excitement. You know, we do have Gino that hypes up the crowd, and I think that does shoot a little bit more adrenaline in you. And those are things that you should be celebrating, especially when it's something like that. So.
He's got 463 on
We've completed one rotation of first attempts. Now we go into the second attempt. Andres Ramos connected at 200, now going for an attempt at 210. And he's 2 for 2 in the deadlift as he's now qualified at 210.
I got to give it to these spotters having to bend down and put these plates and take them back off. You know they have to be tired at the end of the day. I don't know who's more tired, the lifters or the spotters and loaders.
Well, just the sheer concentration of all the athletes that come in here. And it really is, I mean, you know that the spotters have done a great job when you don't mention any gaffes as they transpired throughout the course of the day. That's the biggest testament to a good spotter you can get, is when he doesn't become part of the narrative.
Exactly. Phillip Brown.
The software engineer with a 2-month-old son in his second attempt here.
I think with the look on his face, he knows there was a little bit downward motion with that.
So he cannot connect there on his second attempt. For the moment, he'll hang on at 217.5.
I think with it reaching around 9:15 here, going on 9:30, a lot of these lifters aren't used to lifting so late at night, so that also might be a factor. They might just be getting tired. Their bodies are ready for bed, and it's starting to show a little bit, but we're going to see he's able to finish out on top.
Well, Heather, this is probably saying more about me than the guys that are actually participating, but I know that it's getting real close to my bedtime, that's for sure. So forget about lifting or anything else. I'm telling you, as soon as I get the opportunity, calling it a night here in Orlando.
Amen. I think anybody that knows me knows I would probably be in bed at this time if I were at my house. I don't like being up past 9, so. A lot of these lifters, they do have to take that into thought when they do come into nationals, especially in prime time. Some people are used to training in the morning time, and now you're having to lift at like 5 p.m., 7 p.m., so it's an adjustment, to say the least.
You raise a great point there. I mean, these people are exceptional national level lifters that still have routines and lives and jobs, so a lot of the times their day gets started working out, and it might be 5, 6 a.m. before they shower up and head to work.
Exactly.
It's the very opposite. They probably are already in bed at this time.
Yep.
To flip your biological clock this way has got to be a daunting task.
We just saw Dalton pull for a junior American record in the 59-kilo class. So we'll see what Matthew has to offer with that.
Dalton Lacoe connects at 240. And I thought that we had mentioned it earlier, that Dalton Lacoe's deadlift personal best is 240.5.
And that second attempt flew up. So who knows what his third attempt is going to look like.
Joanthan Garcia at 240 connects there, so he's up to 240 on his second attempt.
I gotta say, for Joanthan Garcia, he has a perfect body for powerlifting. He's just so well proportioned to have a good squat, a good bench, and a good deadlift. You got some people, they got long arms, they got long legs, so it factors them in some lifts. But for him, he's just well proportioned to be a good athlete in this sport.
So Matthew Arremony will come on a lift attempt of 242.5.
Let's see if he brings that same sass after this deadlift like he did the last time. The phones are out. They're looking for this big pool.
He connected at 230 his first time around.
And that looked easier than the first one. And he is playing with the crowd. I'm not too sure what he said. But he is entertaining them. They are awake.
Becoming a quick fan favorite here on a Tuesday night in Orlando.
He is definitely giving the crowd what they want to see.
Dallas Bay, Junior American record attempt in total.
252.5 will be the attempt for Dallas Bay. He missed his first time around. We'll make a second offering at it.
Hopefully this goes a little bit better than his first one, of course. I don't want him to see him go through the same thing that he did with bench. That looked a lot better than his first attempt.
Still looks like he might be experiencing some discomfort with his hands there as he departed, but he gets the lift, 252.5.
To total more than 10 times his body weight.
It looks like Keith Mchoney is going for a deadlift record on his second attempt.
Who's it going to be, Keith or Charles? Charles or Keith? Keith or Charles?
So now we see Gino playing with Keith, probably trying to amp him up a little bit. I think we got a little smile out of Keith back there.
Bars loaded, 270 kilos, 595 pounds, over 10 times his body weight in total. He's looking to take Charles Lacoe out of the gold medal position and move him into the silver. This will give Keith the gold medal position. Here we go.
So this will put Keith in the
270.
gold medal position and Charles in second.
And in this position, he's got basically 2 attempts to do it.
Exactly. I think he'll get it on this one, though.
That's over 4 times his body weight, and the lift is good.
And we didn't have to wait for the final attempt.
He didn't have to wait for the final attempt. He's telling everybody on the live stream, Charles Okapoko, who I'm here to stay. I am keeping my national title. So that is definitely giving Keith the gold medal while Charles is left with the second. So I'm pretty interested to see what Keith will be pulling for his third.
So Keith proving that he is in fact McMoney here in the Raw Nationals as he connects at 270. And it looks like he'll take home the crown. Third attempt rotation coming up.
I think with
Ramos,
Gino
Brown,
amping
Thiha.
him up a little bit, he kind of got that smile like, oh no, I'm not going to let Charles beat me on this one. He wasn't going to let go of that title too easily.
Well, now when the gold medal has been cinched in a circumstance like this, and you've got, in essence, one free attempt, what are some of the things that would go through a person's mind? Would it just be to just let the clock run out, I've done enough, or is it one of those things to where, okay, let's try something?
It really depends on the athlete. As we saw with Marisa, she decided, my body probably wasn't feeling it right now. It wasn't going to be a good lift for today. I've seen her hit it multiple times, but she had the win secured. She was going to keep it. Keith, he'll probably pull for a third just to see him build his own total.
So Andres Ramos goes to 217.5 on his final lift as he put together a total of 530 on the evening. A very solid number for Andres Ramos. And now Phillip Brown will come on for his final attempt.
Bars loaded, Phillip Brown.
Phillip Brown, as you mentioned, has a 2-month-old son. Him and Mom are probably either here watching or back at home watching their husband and father compete in the prime time.
Daughter Riley and wife Kayla.
So the whole family's just watching.
And why not on a Tuesday night?
Seems like a good lift, and it is.
And he connects at 230. For those of you that might not have been able to see it on camera there, Gino, the public address announcer, momentarily left hanging by Phillip Brown. Phillip Brown made amends and came back out. Knowing Gino, he might have stayed there for the rest of the meet until somebody goes out there, gives him a hand pound. Zaw Thiha will come on for his third attempt, trying to make amends on a miss at 235 a moment ago. Thiha cannot connect. He'll take 225 with him for the qualifying score in the deadlift.
Joanthan Garcia is up next.
Garcia will be making an attempt after connecting at 227.5. 240. He'll try to get 245 on the board with his final offering. Want to thank some of the folks that have made tonight possible. A7, bodybuilding.com, GNC, Sling Shot, MyMacros Plus, SSP, and Titan for all supporting tonight's primetime session of the 2017 USA Powerlifting Raw Nationals, the 10th annual edition here in Orlando. Garcia at 245.
That was a really good lift for Joanthan. I think he had loads more left in the tank.
So he'll finish his night at 653 total.
So it's actually Dalton and Matthew going back and forth for this total. For the junior total. And I think in the open total.
Only person in the history of the IPF to ever do 5 times is Lamar Gant in the early 80s.
4.7 times the body weight. That is strength. 4.7 times the body weight. I hope everybody on the live stream heard that.
He's already connected a half a kilo shy of his personal best, and now looking to eclipse it with plenty to spare.
When is Dalton going to show us how much he does have left in the tank?
And he is on the board as he'll finish up tonight at 250 on the deadlift.
That is just an insane number.
It's Matthew Arremony making an attempt at 255 here.
See what kind of celebration he does this time if he gets it. I'm sure the phones are going to be out. Seeing the sass come out of Matt. He's looking determined that he's going to get this lift.
I think you're right, Heather. If he connects on this lift, he might bust out a little Napoleon Dynamite with some bow to your sensei.
Unfortunately, it just wasn't an. I don't think he's going to get that lift.
And he won't get it.
Well, I don't think that was ever going to get a white light, but you know, he did pull a massive number, you know, during his performance here at Raw Nationals. So that is enough to be appreciated in itself. Unfortunately, just didn't have enough for that third attempt, but very, very strong guy.
And he certainly made people notice him here in the deadlift segment.
Of course.
Which is just as valuable. Dallas Bay coming on for his final attempt. The penultimate lifter capping off tonight's action. It'll be Dallas Bay and Keith Mchoney to wrap it up. Bay with an attempt at 262 and a half. And he can't do it.
Just not there today.
All right, here he comes, Superman K-Mac.
Keith Mchoney to finish out the deadlifts today. 606 pounds.
Looking for an open American record in total. Open American record in total.
So as Keith Mchoney comes out for his final deadlift attempt, the introduction continues from Gino as the anticipation begins to ratchet up here. As I'll be very intrigued to see what happens here with this final lift. There's 275 on the board. As these folks know that Keith has wrapped up.
We got people on the feet in the crowd.
Kilo lifter in the USA, Keith Mchoney, K-Mac.
We'll see what happens here.
Huge pull for Keith.
Folks at home, watch it with us.
And I think that is a good lift from Keith Mchoney.
2 white lights out of 3. That'll wrap it up. He gets to 275 as he'll finish up at 687 and a half on the evening.
And we get that celebration for K-Mac that we were looking for, that excitement. And it is well deserved for our gold place medalist.
5 minutes, we're going to give out the medals. In exactly 5 minutes, we're going to give out the medals.
So here inside the Continental Ballroom at the Orlando International Airport Hyatt, we come to our conclusion of the Tuesday primetime session here. Heather Connor, along with Brian Rushing here. Heather, final thoughts on the evening, everything that you saw.
I saw some big pulls. I saw a lot of heavy lifting going on from new upcoming lifters who I am extremely excited to see perform later on in this year, whether it be at IPF Worlds or local competitions. There's a lot left in these lifters, and they are nowhere to be done yet. So,
as Keith Mchoney wraps up tonight's festivities, interesting story. Mchoney started powerlifting to deal with heartbreak, but now he's the one breaking hearts throughout the powerlifting community as he gets the big prize this evening, as he had a host of folks watching him this evening back at home. Cayenne, Kira, Morgan Mahoney, goddaughter Peyton Smalls, as Keith Mchoney, as I have deemed him on the broadcast, comes through again with another win as he will take home the crown in the 2017 10th Annual USA Powerlifting Raw Nationals. Heather, thank you so much for being a part of the evening. Fantastic analysis of the night's event. And I hope that this won't be the last time that I see you in an event.
I hope not.
I'd prefer to see you lifting, but if it can't work out that way, you've got a seat here beside me whenever you want it. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, folks, that'll wrap things up this evening inside the Continental Ballroom here at the Hyatt Orlando International Airport. Again, want to thank A7, bodybuilding.com, GNC, Sling Shot, MyMacros Plus, SSP, and Titan for their sponsorship of tonight's Tuesday night primetime event. Until we're back here with you tomorrow, this is Brian Rushing signing off here at the 2017 USA Powerlifting Raw Nationals. Good night, everybody.